Welcome to Lake and Wildlife. I'm Dara Sinclair, and today we've got a wonderful program for you. I want to start with my it's not a new mission, it's just kind of a restatement to try to keep it fresh about what Lake and Wildlife is all about. And I love the word valiant. I had to look it up, but it means brave, determined, with courage. And I think that within Lake and Wildlife, sometimes the tasks seem so many and so large, and the trees so big across the trails, and things just continue to wear down and wear out and have to be repainted and fixed, and there's just a lot to do and a lot we want to do, and I'm just really proud of the organization and the people that are in it, because we do approach it, I think, with, is valiancy a word? Is that how you would say that? I just think that as an organization and as a group, it's a valiant mission, and we just keep plugging away at it. So this is just my quote for the day about the future, and I think it can be just awesome here in Bentry and in support of our natural environment. Okay, recently, it's been a busy April. Tamarack Treasures collections concluded, and what a job that those ladies did in being here on Friday mornings, and what a great generous community we have for the donations. So all of that is being sorted and priced and boxed in preparation for the sale, which is in May. We got hanging baskets distributed. We did the monthly stream monitoring as always. We had Bentry Days at Whispering Springs, which for the first time in I think 3 years maybe, we had good weather for that, a little bit chilly, but it didn't rain. We didn't have storms, and those were that was a successful event. We got another section of the Sally Doss stream restored with the fabric on the bottom and rocks up the side, and if you have the chance to walk through Sally Doss and cut across the way the trail is now routed on the lower Sally Doss side of the stream, it's really pretty there, and then we've got another section to go, so thanks for everybody who worked on that. The boat storage dock had some rotten boards, and they got replaced. We got the Keep Bentry Beautiful planting was done yesterday, and just in the past few days there was a really big tree that had fallen across Beaver Run, and some gentlemen got out there with chainsaws and got that cleared, so the path is clear. Anything I missed, like that's not enough for the team to be doing. Anything I missed, Lake and Wildlife folks? All right, so thanks for all of that effort. All right, so we're going to move into our main presentation. So I'm going to invite Calvert Huffines. It's such a refined name, but he goes by Huff. So Huff is going to tell us all about the history here. Turn it over. It's all
Thanks.
yours.
Thank you, Dara, and good morning to everybody. Good morning. I've got a kind of hard act to follow. Last month, if you remember, Eldon gave a presentation on scat and tracks. Not only was it informative, but he injected some humor in it. Anybody that can make poop funny, I'm having a hard time following it. So I asked my grandchildren to help me out with an opening joke, and so this is how it turned out. My grandson, who's 11 years old, his name is Hayes, and he's at that age where he hates everybody but his friends. He sent me a joke that was so dirty I couldn't possibly repeat it to you. I sent it back to him with a copy to his parents. He got in trouble with his parents. I'm now blocked from his Snapchat and his face view, or whatever you call it. I don't even know how to, I said I don't know how to do Snapchat, so it doesn't really matter, but he won't talk to me. I've got a 9-year-old granddaughter. Her name is Porter. She's a little bohemian and a brilliant computer kid. She's been the one helping me how to figure out how to work the computer and so forth and so on. She's kind of frustrated with me. So she sent me a joke, and the joke was the following. Why do you throw a computer and a smartphone in the lake at the same time? The answer was, so they can sink. Now, laugh if you want. I called her up and I said, honey, listen, I don't understand the joke. And she said, Huff Daddy, you're just too old to understand this sort of stuff. So I texted her back and I said, okay, smarty pants, you think you're so smart, you can't even spell S-I-N-K correctly. I've now been blocked from her Facebook, from her 2 out of 3 I've lost. So my 6-year-old came through. So here's her joke, and I love it because she's so cute. She wants to know, what do you get when you try to cross a lake with snowshoes? Wet. There you go. So that much I think we can do.
I'm right here, Huff.
Okay, good. Thank you. Get ready when you are. I want you, before we start, I want you to know that this was an effort by a number of people. Dara, of course, put together the great slide presentation and formatted it so it really is attractive. She's brilliant. She's our brilliant leader, and thank you for that. Brian Vassar, our award-winning stream keeper, put together lots of information in an orderly manner. Gerald Hunter, our noted author here at Bent Tree, also put together some copy and so forth that made it run a little smoothly. And lots of the information came from Chris Felt, from the history, the pictures. He actually was able to get some older topo maps, older satellite photos, and so forth. So I want to thank all of those people that worked together to try to make this presentation. Yeah. And my role is to take credit for all their work. So here we go. So thank you all very much for that. Now this first slide shows a topo map of 1926. And this is not that easy to see, but if you start looking carefully, you'll notice some things. Here is Long Swamp. What is that, the right name? Long Swamp. Long Swamp coming through here. And originally there was the Clay Paget house, and there was the Sally Doss chimney right here. If you look at the topo map, and if you look at the closer the lines are, the greater the slope. For example, here in this area, this is what we know as the cove, right in here. The dam is somewhere right in here, the spillway and so forth. But this is 1926. And what it shows basically is that there is a waterway that comes through between 2 high ridges all throughout here. Okay? Now this is even a better map because it's an aerial map showing the same thing. But if you look at the difference in the trees, you see how large these trees look. You see how large these trees look. These are the ridges where the houses are now on the lake. This area where the smaller trees are, this is Long Swamp coming through. Here is the existing dam here now, but of course this was taken before the dam was in place. There was a little field here at one time, but most of this was in what's called a hardwood flat. Now I thought originally when I was on the lake and I was putting out habitat structures and trying to figure out where the breaks were and so forth, I thought, thank you. I thought that perhaps there was a deep stream coming through here and then it sloped up to the sides. Well, that's not the case. Almost from the boat ramp all the way down to the dam, from ridge to ridge where houses are, it's about 40 feet in depth. Now, there's some places right about in here that's 85 feet. But generally 40 feet with a slight creek coming through the middle, but not a big change. So hardwood flat is correct. This is a flat. And the way these flats work is that during high water times, the water spreads out of the creek into the trees, and thus a flat. During dry times, the water recedes into the creek only. And so this is what it originally was at the time, and that's why from side to side, it's about 40 feet all the way across, all the way across. It gets deeper down here towards the spillway, right off this point. This is the 85-foot level area right here, and then towards the dam, in front of the dam is kind of deep as well. But the deepest part is right in here, and there's sort of a deep ridge coming right through here. Now, I have seen through my depth recorder, I've seen chimneys that are there, and I think it could be the Sally Doss chimney and probably the Paget, what's his name? I can't even read it myself. Something Paget. Clay, thank you very much. Paget. I asked for a transponder, by the way. They did not, I wanted a transponder. The Biden administration had them all tied up, so I wasn't able to get them. But I did get Joe Biden's cheat sheet, though, so you know I'm good to go there. But this is an interesting map because it shows the hardwood flat, and that basically makes up the bottom of the lake. Now, in 1970, the dam was constructed. Here's some interesting information. Who was a construction company. A.L. Jones actually built the dam. It was engineered by B.D. Pinckney. Don't know whether they were local people or not, but the interesting part about it is the dam is 120 feet high. It's 1,100 feet long, 750 feet thick, and the base is made out of 800,000 cubic yards of dirt, probably almost all clay, because that's the best thing to do when you're building a dam. And you try to, when you build a dam, you build a clay base that's like somewhat like a pyramid, and that then ties into the rest of the dirt above it. We are a Class 1 dam, meaning that it is the most highly regulated dam because of the possible potential damage if it failed. So we are highly regulated. Under the present condition between being a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 meaning in terms of safety, we are a 3 right now, not a 4, but a 3. And I think that when we finish up the sluice gate and so forth, we'll probably move up to at least a 2. But the dam is in very good condition, and but it's the most important structure here at Bent Tree. So it's we're always very careful about it. Dara mentioned to me that it's so important that we don't even allow horses to cross the dam because you don't want a trail that is then dirt where water could seep in, create a fissure. So we are very, very particular about keeping grass on the dam and keeping it protected well. This next slide gives you an example of what a dam is like. Now, this is a little different than our dam. The spillway here is actually over here on our dam. Our sluice gate actually is on top of the dam and extends out into the lake. This is the same thing basically here, but a different type of a sluice gate. And we put a new gear section on earlier this year, and we're waiting now to get a trash screen to be put on the outside of the gate before we open it and test it. But all that's coming up in either June or July of this year with divers going down and doing it. But this is a very typical dam structure and not somewhat unlike ours, but like ours. Now underneath the lake, and here's the construction going on here of the dam as you can see, underneath the lake are some structures. Now this is a 1800s smokehouse that was saved from being flooded, taken apart, never reassembled again, unfortunately. It'd be nice if it was reassembled, but at least that's not underneath the lake. There are some things that are underneath the lake that are interesting. One are 2 chimneys that I found from the depth recorder. There's also an old logging road, James Smith taught me this, from the beach pavilion dock, basically, straight across to the ridge across from the beach pavilion dock. And then up in the cove area, there's also the remnants of a rock dam that was built there some years ago. Don't know exactly when that was done, but the cove at one time obviously was a pond in itself before the larger pond was built. That rock structure now's got a break in it and really doesn't serve any function. A great place to fish, though. Fishers stay hanging around there all the time. Now this next slide shows about some the flooding and when it occurred in 1971. The Clay Paget house is here. That's underwater now. This chimney is still here, and part of the house is flooded and underwater. You see the cove right here, and that dam that I'm referring to is about 2/3 towards the lake from the end of the dam, end of the cove. Here's our existing dam, the spillway area. One thing that's notable about the spillway area, under normal times, this area here, a spillway with a bridge across it, is where our water exits. During very high water times, this entire grass area on both sides of the spillway also floods. So this flat area between the lookout point, it used to be for the revenuers on this house, and the next point down over here, or actually over here, this all actually will flood and act as a spillway. So it's an important part to keep the cars off the grass in this area and make sure that that's always open. There's also where the swing is, down where the dogs are working and so forth. From there, there's an open culvert right here that comes underneath here and goes straight to where the waterfall is. That open culvert allows water to escape as well. And so there are actually two ways to take water out of this lake. One is the spillway, and this open culvert that comes through here also is another way. And there's a reason for that.
Did that take out the walkway?
Pardon me?
I think that took out the walkway, didn't it?
I'm not sure. You talk what walkway are you referring to?
Spillway flood.
Yeah, it did. Well, that was when it first flooded, when the lake was first created. We'll talk about that.
We're talking about, we'll talk about the storms in a minute. I understand what you're saying. This is the boat ramp area and the boat storage area. This, of course, is the beach. And this lake here, Rocky Creek Pond, was built in 1949. This is a picture of it as well, before the lake was flooded. And the notes I have say that it helps flood Lake Tamarack. Well, it certainly does, but there's a lot of creeks coming into Lake Tamarack. This is now really a very important lake for us because it's a silt lake. It catches lake coming down from Rocky Creek and keeps it from dumping into the lake. It's not perfect. If you'll notice right in here, there's some silt that's building up right here, but this is still a significant, important lake for Lake Tamarack. This is privately owned. When I've been fishing and removing the small bass and the fish that we don't want in the lake, spotted bass and so forth, I've been putting them in here as well as the golf course. And I think there's some renovation coming up according to the owners to the lake, but it's an important part of silt control. Here's some details on the lake that I think is interesting. It's 110 acres. The elevation basically on the flat part of the lake is 1,450 feet. At the deepest point, and that's where I showed you where the deepest point was, 85 feet. And these are the fish that are in the lake. Crappie, bass, catfish, bluegill, walleye. Yes, there's walleye in the lake because yesterday, Lake and Wildlife stocked 2,100 walleye in the lake. After much research, because it was a little controversial as to would walleye compete with the other fish in the lake. The trout didn't work before. We did a lot of research on it. We found out that there are a number of lakes in and around our area where have had a very successful stocking of walleye. Lake Blue Ridge, Big Canoe, Carter's Lake, and then a number of private lakes even south of us have been stocked with walleye, and it's all been very successful. Now the chances of reproduction of walleye, I would say at the most 50-50. This is going to be more of a put and take situation here for our lake. They're going to grow up to be a great eating fish. They don't compete with the bass and the bluegill because they go in the deeper areas where the water is colder. The bass and the bluegill are shallow type fish, except in the winter where they drop down below the thermocline. So we think it's going to be a very interesting stocking and experiment. And the opportunity came up because the Illinois university that was growing them for research found that they all of a sudden had an overabundance of walleye, had to get rid of them to put in the next batch of fish that they were working on, and made a few calls, and we were able to buy them for half what they normally cost. And I'm very pleased about the stocking yesterday. So to make a long story short, we do now have walleye in the lake.
What size were they?
Well, the biggest size was this. Most of them were like this. But I took a picture of the biggest one and sent it out just because I wanted to brag a little bit. But you know, I am a fisherman. You understand that. So, but I think it's going to work well. And when you get on fishing, I'll talk a little bit more about that. You may not be able to shut me up when we get on that subject. So we'll see. Okay, let's see what we got here. Oh, the five streams that feed the lake. It's interesting to know these. Mulligan, Sally Doss, I can't read it, something Cove, help me out, Long Swamp Creek, estimated 49 million gallons per day coming to the lake. Y'all have heard this before from me, I think, but it's interesting. For every acre that we have in Lake Tamarack, and it's 110 acres, the ratio of watershed that comes in is 50 watershed acres for every 1 acre of lake. So there's a significant amount of water that comes through Lake Tamarack. One of the reasons that our water is so clean, it flushes very well. We continue to have it flush. And so that's good in regular times. During storm times, it may not be as good. There are 2 pump houses on the lake. I think y'all probably know where they're located. Our drinking water here at Bent Tree, we get our drinking water from the lake 40 to 60% of the time. 1 inch of water over 110 acres equals 2 million. This is Brian's numbers here, as you can imagine. 2,968,971 gallons. So the estimated volume in the lake is 1.2 billion gallons, give or take a gallon or two, I think. When there's zero inflow pulled from the lake, the replacement from the lake, in 30 days, we take water out, there's zero. The lake would drop in 30 days about 7.5 inches. I think that's a real interesting statistic. I don't think since I've been here, we certainly haven't seen it. And we've had more water than we want a number of times, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Now, downstream. This is, there's a rumor that I've heard time and time again that we can't do this because the city of Jasper tells us we got to do this with the lake and so forth and so on. We do not have any agreement whatsoever with the city of Jasper regarding Lake Tamarack or the water going through there. None whatsoever. So I was surprised to hear it, but that's the case. Who do we have an agreement with? The Environmental Protection Department. That's a Georgia department. Says that when they built the lake, that we had to have a certain amount of flow through the lake to protect the invertebrates and so forth, fish downstream. So our only agreement we have regarding the lake and the water usage going through there is with the Environmental Protection Department, not the city of Jasper. And that's the reason that you can't see it without the map up there, but that's the reason that we have that open culvert that runs in front of the swing at the spillway area, underneath the grass, and over to the waterfall to ensure that there'll always be a water flow. Now, what's our responsibility if we're in a serious drought? We have none. All we can do is do the best we can to make sure water does flow through the lake. It's never been a real problem. Matter of fact, it's an excess of water that's become the real problem. So that settles that rumor about the city of Jasper and the lake, I think, which is interesting. Okay, ma'am. So, you know, our stream keepers, award-winning stream keepers, have really done a wonderful job here at Lake Tamarack and the streams to make sure that the water quality is good, or to identify if there's a problem where the source of the pollution has come from. You have source pollution, you have non-source pollution. Let's say someone put a hog farm up above us somewhere, that would create a source pollution. Fortunately, our water is excellent here at Bent Tree. And the average dissolved oxygen is 7.2, the pH is 6.8, alkalinity is 38, something nitrates and phosphates, et cetera, et cetera. The point is, the water is excellent here. And thanks to the stream keepers, I'm telling you, that's a job. They go out all the time working on making sure that our water is in good shape, and it certainly is. Now let's look at the greenbelt areas. This is an area around the lake that is in front of all the houses on the lake. And what's the purpose of the greenbelt area? Well, it's known as a riparian zone. And a riparian zone means it's a zone to protect water quality from silt running into the lake. Now, originally the plan for the greenbelt area was that it was sort of, no one really, I mean, the lot owners that own here had full access to cross it and so forth, but no boat storage, no intrusion into the lake, and it needed to be grassed, bushes that needed to be maintained there, and everything to try to stop the flow from that high slope of erosion after big rain into the lake. Well, I think the idea is excellent. That hasn't really been followed through completely. And I have a little concern about it, to be honest with you. As I was fishing yesterday, I was thinking a good bit about it, and I saw a number of areas here where boats were being stored in the greenbelt area. I saw a number of areas where the bushes and brush had been completely cut and there was no grass whatsoever in the greenbelt area. And again, it defeats the purpose of the greenbelt area. Now, if I lived on the lake, I might have a different view. I understand that completely. But the greenbelt area is very, very important to maintain as a buffer between the high slopes and coming down into the lake. There were some areas I noticed yesterday that were completely denuded of any grass or bushes or brush, as well as a boat sitting right there on the lake. The reason that boats sitting there in the greenbelt area certainly is very convenient to the lake owner there, and I understand that, but they shade out the grass. And all of a sudden you have an area where water's going to run through and take that dirt into the lake. And that's the purpose of the Greenbelt areas. There's lots of discussion that can be made on this subject. How wide is the Greenbelt area? Where is the boundary? Is it wider at certain houses than other houses? How come some people are doing it when other people aren't? There's a lot of room for discussion, but I can only tell you that it's an important area as a riparian zone to try to protect silt from coming into the lake. And that silt problem is a real problem. So, all right, let's take a look at this slide. Originally, when the lake was first built, there was a dock off of the beach here, and they used to rent paddle boats. Now, one of the hurricanes or tropical storms took care of that for us. Notice that the creek coming in here, notice the silt build up here on a little pond and so forth. But that's an interesting aspect of Bent Tree that I wasn't aware of, that we actually rented paddle boats from the dock. That's no longer there. Obviously the beach is there. We now have a dock here at the beach pavilion. I don't think that was even here at the time. And of course the dock at the boat landing and a dock over here at Sally Doss. All three of those docks have feeders on them, and the fish are just about to eat the dock. They're so hungry when they come there. I mean, it's crazy. The people here that have feeders, they can attest to the fact that it's like piranha now. The fish are really feeding well on the pellets. We've gone from twice a day, 1 second at a time. We're now 3 times a day, gone to 2 seconds at a time. One of the feeders, I think, is moving to 3 seconds because the fish are eating all the food. With the walleye we put in there, who are fed and trained on the pellets, it's gonna be even better. Interestingly, and some of y'all probably know this, we've had a host of other animals that have taken advantage of the feeder, which is great, actually. Wood ducks, I don't know how, they must have watches on their wings, because right before 3 o'clock when the thing goes off, they fly in, boom, we're sitting there waiting on it. Turtles, of course, they've been eating some as well. And if you notice, there's a few more great blue heron on the lake than ever before. They figured out if they sit at the feeder, when the little fish come up to feed, well, they feed on the little fish. So it's a little bit of it's a wonderful circle of life. The feeders have been real effective, and I'm pleased to say. Now, there's some things that happened here in the lake that people should be aware of. This is early time. In 1981, the Burnt Mountain Assembly, which was, I'm just assuming, was a religious organization, they had a septic tank entered Long Swamp in the lake. There was, according to our historian here, Chris Felt, there was a probable settlement too. We don't know exactly what the settlement was, but that's now where Young Life is. And they've been really good neighbors for us, and I think that that's a better ownership for us. If you look at this map, this is from Hurricane Andrew. This is a silt buildup that came through the Hurricane Andrew. That was in 1992. We had 5 inches of rain in one day. We brought all kind of silt and trees into the lake. And if you look at where we've circled, you'll see where on Mulligan, Coffee Cove, and Long Swamp Inlets, the silt buildup here, here, and here. All it takes is a really strong rain. And I'm going to get into the remedies for silt buildup here shortly. And one of them is the Greenbelt Zone. In 1994, that's when Young Life bought out the assembly. And then we had a tropical storm named Hermine. Not the Hurricane Hermine, that came later actually. But that was the North Georgia, and it was very significant. And all of North Georgia suffered a little bit from that tropical storm. Here's another picture of some of the silt wash impact here. And of course, you see here, this is a boat ramp, boat storage area. This is the water coming through the creek, coming through the private lake here. And then of course, you can see the island that's being built up here next to the beach. This is not the only area where the silt built up. You can go down to Mulligan Way, Mulligan Creek in the cove and so forth, and see that silt being built up as well. It's a significant problem here on the lake, and one which we're taking very seriously, and we're going to do all we can to try to address it. 2002, Hurricane Isidore dumped 5 to 6 inches of rain on North Georgia. It washed a lot of our fish out and created more silt damage and so forth. 2004, Hurricane Ivan the Terrible hits, and it flooded the lake out and the bridge over the spillway. I think that was the same hurricane that might have taken out Tamarack Road, Lake Tamarack, the Tamarack Highway there, the road? No? No? That was a different one?
Yeah.
Okay, but I've seen pictures of that. It's very, very significant. By 2006, the cumulative effect of the weather events was significant, and Bent Tree undertook a dredging project. Notice the difference in the map between the earlier maps we showed, where all this was empty basically, and now you see all the houses on there, and the houses along the lake and so forth. The golf course is very evident. The dredging took place, and I think they did most of the entire lake, and these are areas that they deposited silt from the dredging.
I think you're here, this is the one with the deposit.
I'm sorry, thank you so much. As I said, this is where this is where they deposited the silt there on the lake. This is still here, it's all grassed over and so forth. The creek comes in right here, and there's a significant area here where we could build a silt pond. I think that would help that significantly. That dredging cost, if I understand correctly, was about $500,000 to Bent Tree. And, you know, Lake and Wildlife suggested to the board, and the board suggested to us, that instead of spending money on dredging again, kicking the can down the road, putting a Band-Aid on the problem, let's address the silt problem first before we spend money on dredging. Brian, when the stream keepers got their award the other day, was able to find a renowned hydrologist who is coming, and we're going to work out a plan to address the silt problem. I don't think it'll ever be 100% by any means at all, but our feeling is let's spend the money that we have now for dredging. It's about $75,000, and let's see first how to stop the silt problem by going upstream, building dams, doing whatever is necessary to try to address the silt coming in before we start dredging again. So that's the plan. I don't have any details to tell you because he hadn't come yet. When's he coming, Brian?
Middle to end of May.
Okay. Good. So we'll have some more to tell you about that. But I think it's a smart idea to let's see if we can stop that silt as much as possible before we dredge and have to dredge and have to dredge and have to dredge, and be prepared before hurricane season comes, maybe to stop the significant type of silt that we're getting in the lake now. All right, we're talking a little bit about more hurricanes, 2016 and 2017. You can read this as well as I can, but I can tell you we had 2 hurricanes in that time as well. And unfortunately, all it does is create problems for the lake. And it puts stress on the dam as well. And that dam is the most important structure here at Bent Tree. There's no question about it. Well built, well addressed, but Ashley tells me at the last discussion he and I had, that he's very, very careful about the dam and making sure that it isn't abused. And at one time when we were stocking trout, which didn't work here, there was a net put across the spillway to try to keep the fish in. Well, the trout, they like moving water, so they got as close to the spillway, closer to the moving water as they could. And as they went over the spillway, the city of Jasper was gleeful as they were catching trout down below the lake. And it just didn't work. And the net didn't work. And it didn't work because the water department removed the net. The rumor was the city of Jasper didn't like it, and the previous, not Tom Fowler, but a previous manager didn't have the courage to keep it up and fight the city of Jasper. None of that's true. The water department here at Bent Tree removed it because they were constantly having to wade out in the water, take out the sticks and logs and so forth, and Ashley was concerned that it was reducing the water from the spillway and thus putting more pressure on the dam. So to put that rumor to rest, there you go. Okay. Continuing silt buildup. Well, this is no surprise to anybody, I think. If you look at these areas here, it's the same area that we had silt buildup before. And we're going to continue to have that silt buildup until we address the reasons for it. One thing we could do right here in the cove, for example, is build a silt pond and catch the silt if we can. I met with our general manager when he was first hired, Jim, and I took him to the silt dams that we have on three of the creeks really coming into the lake, and they're somewhat effective. Now, the creek that comes in by the bocce court, that has a leak underneath the big rocks that were put there. That's not effective. It's not effective because the purpose of a silt dam is for the water to stop, pick up, run over the rocks, and thus deposit the silt there, and it should be cleaned out periodically. We're working on correcting that leak right now, and we've come up with a way I think that'll work. Also, before Jim got here, I don't think there was a very effective way of cleaning out the silt that was deposited before these dams. Not effective meaning not periodic. And so now Ashley, who heads up the water department, is cleaning the silt out on a quarterly basis. And you may have noticed right there by the bocce court where there was a pile, and down there on Tamarack Road there was by Young Life, that dam was cleaned out as well. So we're on top of that and getting maintenance in the water department to be a little bit more effective about cleaning out the silt. And those dams are effective. They seem to work quite well. Fishery, well, now, before I'm through, we're going to break for lunch, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've got a lot to say about this, but I'm going to keep it short if I can, because as you all know, it's my passion. This is a little something about the history that we did here, and I'm not going to read all this because I can't read it, but I will. I know it by heart. Earlier on, I don't know what it was, 2018 maybe, there was a study done where they shocked the lake and found that there was very little habitat in the lake for fish, really not a lot of fish in the lake, and they recommended putting in habitat structures and so forth. And so Christmas trees were put in. There was a restocking of some bluegill, and there was a weed problem. It was not a weed so much from the bottom of the lake, but on the surface of the lake. And it created a problem for kayakers and fishermen and so forth. And unfortunately, the more weeds, the more fish. But we have a lot of uses of that lake other than fishing. And kayaking is a real important part, and canoeing, and also visually seeing the lake without weeds in there. So they put a lot of grass carp in, again and again and again. And putting the grass carp in was very effective. They did a great job. The grass carp are sterile. Their life expectancy is about 10 years. And we're about at the end of their life cycle now. I've noticed fewer and fewer grass carp in the last year or two. So all I can say, it was a little bit of an overkill. Last year, we also shocked the lake, and it was interesting to see what fish we were able to get. All were very thin. And you don't measure them by big belly or not big belly. You measure them from looking on, I learned this, I didn't know it. You look on top of the fish and see how wide, how much flesh they have, how well they're fed. Well, all our fish last year that were shocked and measured and so forth were extremely thin. And the biologist says, this could be a 3 or 4 year old bass that hadn't grown more than this because he's starving to death. There's just no food in the lake. So we came up with a plan, and the plan has worked very well at this point. Thanks to the board who has supported it, thanks to private donations who supported it, thanks to the Bentry Foundation, and thanks to Lake and Wildlife, we reversed that trend. We bought and purchased habitat structures that were put in the lake. Here's the grass carp, by the way. Oh, I know that. We saw about.
I don't know whether to change the slides or not.
You'll never catch up with me at this point. We're talking fish. We're talking fishing. So anyhow, we have stocked in the lake 50,000 bluegill, and we've put in 27 habitat structures. The habitat structures, you've heard me say it before, made out of vegetable plastic. They'll last longer than any of us will live, and are beginning to be very effective. When I was out on the lake yesterday, I spent a lot of time at the habitat structures. I pulled some up, looked at them. They're beginning to grow a little bit of moss and so forth. And the lake that actually looks like a bathtub at this point, because the grass carp have denuded everything on the bottom of the lake, now is beginning to have some habitat where the little fish can hide, the big fish can circle around. But most of these structures, if you look, it's hard to see in this picture, but a lot of these structures are like bushes. We have some boxes of screens and so forth, but the little fish can hide from the big fish, and that's what you want. You want a reproduction cycle. We also have added some supplement to the lake in terms of food. We added a couple thousand threadfin shad for the bass, and to keep the bass away from the bluegill. That's the purpose of it. In a couple weeks, we're going to be adding 2,000 pounds of crawfish for the bass, to keep the bass away from the bluegill. And so those two species will reproduce. And I think in 3 to 5 years, we'll have a good reproductive cycle. The plan is next year to do the same thing, add threadfin shad and crawfish. We were going to add northern bass, but the walleye have sort of taken the budget off the bass, and we think it's a better thing to do. One, cost-wise, and secondly, that can come down the road if we need to. I just think it's the right thing to do, what we've done.
How many feeders you have?
We have 10 feeders, 7 that are on the docks, one on Sally Doss, one at the beach pavilion, one at the boat ramp, and then 7 are owned by private landowners, and they've been extremely effective. I'm just amazed at it. And there's an opportunity for anybody else on the lake, or even someone who isn't on the lake but would like to adopt a feeder. The Bentry Foundation has been kind enough to allow people to make a donation to the foundation to buy the feeder. Thus it's tax deductible. And then the feeder will come, be assembled for you, give you directions as to how to program it. It's very easy. It's all digital, solar powered. The food lasts a long time, and even better, the food is free. We'll supply the food for you. All you have to do is buy the feeder, and you don't have to be on the lake. We've got greenbelt areas where we could put the feeders and so forth, and they're up on stilts. They don't shade the grass out, and so forth. So that's so we'll wait for any other further questions when we get to the end here. But yes, sir.
What's the cost of it?
$1,450, $1,450. And are you volunteering? Did I? No. Sounds like it. It sounds like we have 11 now instead of 10, which is good. We wish you would, actually. Here's a picture of the feeder on the right, you'll see. And here's the solar panel. The food actually comes out of this area here. What's real interesting about the feeder is we did a lot of research trying to feed. There are a lot of fish feeders. This is from Texas Hunter Products. It's by far the best. It's made out of really fine galvanized material and aluminum. What I like about it so much is that when the feeder cuts on, for the first couple seconds, a fan cuts on to make sure that there's no food left. And there wouldn't be, because after it's fed, the fan stays on for another 2 or 3 seconds to get all the food out of the feeder. The purpose being is you don't want food sitting here because it might attract other animals and so forth. We've had no problem with bears. We've had no problem with anything at all at this point. So I'm very pleased. It's a great product, and easily adjusted if you want to change the times and so forth. The solar panel keeps everything charged up. It's really, you put it there and it's automatic, and if you want to change the times based on what we recommend, and if anyone wants to get one and is worried about changing the times and so forth, we'll be glad to do it for you. So, okay, let's talk about the sluice gate here for a minute on the dam. This is our new mechanism here, a gearbox that opens up the sluice gate. And the sluice gate, this is the sluice gate here. It's basically down like this, but this shows it very well. And the gearbox opens up the sliding mechanism here to let water through. And the only thing remaining is this trash guard that's sitting right here. So that's a new addition. This hadn't been worked in quite some time, and I think the new one is going to work very well. And Ashley in the water department, I think they are determined to open it and close it on a more regular basis than they have been in the past. Next, thank you. Here's some work that was being done at Sally Doss. This is by your volunteers here at Lake and Wildlife. This is, and by the way, if you even if you don't want to volunteer, don't get near Art Tippett, because he'll volunteer you to do this kind of work. But this is work that they've done. This putting down this material here, then they cover it with rocks. Here's an example of some of the water coming through the stream and the rocks that are on the side to stop the erosion and the silt. This is just good restoration of the Sally Doss area. If you'll notice, those of you who play golf on the golf course, they've also done a lot of work on the golf course with rocks along the stream edges as well. It's all a significant effort to try to stop the silt, but there's much more that can be done and much more that we will do. Here's an example of a silt dam. This is on Mulligan Creek, and Mulligan Creek goes into the cove. And this is the area kind of over here that I said might make another big silt pond to catch the silt before it even gets to this point. But this is a purpose of the silt dam. The water's supposed to, if you notice the silt right here, it's been stopped before it got into the lake. The purpose of the dam is to create something where the water will go over and drop the silt before that. And this one obviously is working because look at the silt buildup there. It's not 100%, but it certainly is a big, big help. Let's get to the next slide. This is what it's all about. Honestly, these are two boys that are, I don't think they're the children of Matt. Matt's our Australian friend that lives here. Matt Kelly, I think his name is. We call him Dingo. So Dingo's two boys went down to the dock at the feeder the other day and caught these two nice bass. And don't look at the bass. By the way, that's bigger than any bass I've caught here. Don't look at the bass, but look at the smiles on their faces. This is what it is all about. I mean, that's kind of what the reason that we want to try to improve the fishing here at Lake Tamarack. I mean, not just for us, but for our grandkids, for our kids, to be able to come to a dock or get in a boat with somebody, catch fish, smile, and have a good day. As you can see, we're well on the way to making that happen, and I'm very pleased to be a part of it. Now, questions?
Would the sluice gate be our kind of backup for reducing the volume in the lake if we had another hurricane come through?
I agree with you that the sluice gate is important to have available to be able to take the pressure off the dam. But we already have a number of things without that sluice gate that I think are pretty effective. That is the big spillway, meaning all the grass area, the open culvert that's there now. But the sluice gate is important to have. And in June or July, when that trash screen is put in there, we'll have a working sluice gate. But yes, it is an important aspect of it. Another question? I'm sorry.
I don't have a question. I just want to thank Huff for all the work he's done in the last year for the lake. He has been over there by the dock putting this fish habitat together. I mean, he has been tireless.
Well, I can tell you, I had a lot of help doing this. I mean, Gerald was one that helped me. We've got Kevin O'Brien in his pontoon boat that helped me. Art and James and someone else, I can't remember, put a lot of the habitat structures together. And the board has supported the effort, and private donations have come in from people who've also supported the effort. So I'm proud to be part of it, but it wasn't all my effort by any means at
I
all.
also need to mention that Huff has given up a lot of his time on the lake to make sure the bass fishing is like it ought to be.
Yeah, that it's all market research is all I'm doing. I'm sorry, at the back.
Chris?
So the clearing of the green belt, Huff, you mentioned the
I'm listening.
the clearing of the green belt area from boats and such. Twice a year, the compliance person, whoever that is, gets in the boat, the pontoon boat with public safety, and they make a tour around the lake, and then they contact all of the residents that have boats on the green belt. The last time we did it, we had a total of 10 different properties, I'm told, that had boats on the green belt, and about 7 to 8 of the people responded and moved their boats from the green belt area. So it's a work in progress. Some of it's educational. Like you said, most of the people do it for convenience, but most of the residents, if they watch your presentation, will understand why it's more important rather than just having some rule that they may perceive as being arbitrary. So it is something that we monitor and it's a work in progress.
Let me make a comment on that. There is legitimate questions from lake owners about where does the green belt start and stop? why is it so small here? Why is it, why, and so forth. I think it needs to be identified a little bit better. Paul Phillips and Darwin have planted some grass to see how well it works in an area, and they've had it now going for about a year or so, that is very hardy, low growing, so it doesn't inhibit views, that could work very well along the greenbelt, because there are certain areas where people have denuded even all the grass. And even I took a picture yesterday of a boat that's there that it didn't work. That didn't worry me as much as the fact that there was a path twice as big as this podium of dirt going all the way up the hill to the man's house. And so it's just a tunnel of erosion every time it rains right into the lake. And so we just need to be aware of that. The green belt is very important. I don't want to I wouldn't want to inhibit people's use of the lake that live on the lake. I think there's got to be a way to accommodate the views and the usage of boats and so forth and still maintain the green belt. Yes, sir.
One quick thing on the existing silt dams, is one of the options is to add the erosion fabric to the dam to prevent them from washing out.
I don't think the dam creates any silt problem. It's the creek.
The silt dams themselves that are
Oh,
filling, adding the fabric would solve that problem.
One of the things, the leakage under the rocks at I call it the bocce court silt dam. They've tried to move rocks and it hadn't stopped it. I met with Ashley the other day, and I worked with a project like that on a client's property one time, where we couldn't stop a leak. We tried, we did everything. And we got bags of saccharine, if you know what saccharine is, and put them down, and the saccharine provided just the leak stoppage. So we're looking at doing that at that leak right now. So Ashley's gonna try it when the water flow goes down a little bit to be able to do that.
Barbara?
Going back to the history of the flooding in Lake Tamarack, my girl here, she was interested. She's like, well, maybe I'm going to find out, are there houses underneath Lake Tamarack? It looks like Clay Hodge's house was flooded.
Yes, that house or chimney is still remaining. I don't think the wood since 1971 is probably still there. I do see the chimney when I'm fishing. Matter of fact, it's a good fishing spot. I'd give you those GPS numbers, but that's a secret. But yes.
There's a few chimneys there that if we're on our kayaks, we're not able to spot them.
I don't think you can see it because it's almost in 40 feet of water. I don't think you can see it. I can see it on a depth finder, and I'm assuming that's what it is. Sometimes it just looks like a hump, but it's awful rectangular more than a rounded hump. So I kind of think that's what it is. So I don't know.
You get my husband the depth finder when he walks, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. He asked me to bring that up, by the way. So. All right. Any other questions? And I can't see that well, so if you've got your hand up, please speak up.
No? Okay.
Nothing else? Well, thank you so much.
Wait, we do.
Whoop.
Has any thought been given to stocking with smallmouth?
I didn't hear the question.
Smallmouth, have we thought about stocking with smallmouth?
The Georgia Department of Natural Resources will not allow you to stock smallmouth. Don't ask me why exactly, but I talked to our fish biologist that we've been using, and he said, God, this is a great lake for smallmouth. I wish we could stock it. I said, well, why can't you? He said, well, they won't let us. So don't ask me why, because I don't really understand it, but that's the case. So. Any other questions? Until I get into the second part of fishing, you know?
Thank you. I could tell he really liked the pointer that I came up with for him because I was supposed to bring the pointer, so sorry about that. Huh? I think one of the things that I learned in this presentation and doing the research for it was I had been under the impression, only having been in Bent Tree for 5 years, 6 years maybe, now that our silt problem was new. I thought that it's the worst it's ever been, and just to hear some people talk about it, but looking at the old pictures and understanding the cycle of the silt, I guess I obviously, along with a lot of people, came here after the dredging, right? So we didn't have any knowledge of that history before, or hadn't seen it, and so from that dredged point, it has been an accumulation that just seems like it's so. I don't know what that's worth, except that, you know, it helped me feel better that this is a cycle. There's only so much we can do, and we are going to try to do some root cause solutions instead of just fixing the problem, getting the silt out, and then knowing that you have to do it again in a decade because of the expense. So I thought that was really worthy information for everybody to understand how that works, and to understand the history of the lake is fun, how it came to be here. So appreciate your time coming to Lake of My Life. Next month, snags and deadfall, and that's another sometimes, you know, controversial, like, why don't we pick up all the dead wood on the floor, on the forest floor? Why do we leave standing dead trees? What are they good for? So I think that'll be a great presentation for everybody to hopefully make it back. Thanks for coming.